Does it sound okay? Maybe? Sure? Yeah? Okay. Sounds good. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much for swinging by. My capstone is titled Self-Made Doubt, or excuse me. There we go. Using self-made courage to face self-made doubt. Self-made doubt required placing myself in spaces that produce feelings of uncertainty, thus requiring me to have self-made courage. I categorize my 3 spaces as the following: language and communication, navigating human relationships, and breaking the illusion of self. Experiences that I used to place myself in these spaces of doubt were being a certified nursing assistant at the Waters on Mayowood, doing an undergraduate research opportunity program study this summer, and journeying abroad to Cordoba, Argentina. To explain my first space, language and communication. In order to enter a space of doubt here, I looked outside of my normal methods of communication. As a CNA, I work in a memory care unit, which is a locked facility, and one of my residents, though she can ambulate on her own, often has a gaze that's face down, and she's nonverbal. This being said, while I'm trying to help her get ready during the night and changing into her pajamas, I can never tell if she's truly comfortable. I noticed in her room she had a hymn posted, and that she was a Lutheran in her charts. So one night I began to sing to her as we were getting ready, and I wasn't even a full verse in, and she started to whistle along. So I had this confirmation that she was okay and doing well, and she started to relax and stopped resisting my help. Here I realized I really enjoy people puzzles and analyzing people from certain angles. Taking this farther, but to another spectrum of age, the title of my research was Informal Science Education, Circulatory Golf Kets, and I worked with children ages 5 and under. In this, the conversation consisted of a game. My portion of the conversation came in with the design. The way I designed the course was how I communicated what I wanted the children to learn. Informal science education means unfacilitated learning beyond the classroom, so I wasn't able to lecture them. So this is my only way of communicating what I wanted them to learn. They participated in this, and they had several different kinds of reactions, both during and after. This was their response to what I had asked them to learn. I realized that not having complete control of a conversation is okay and still allows me to get different answers back. Moving forward, I released my biggest form of control over my communication and language, and that was giving up the English language as a whole. I traveled to Cordoba, Argentina on my own, and immediately upon entering the country, I was so nervous because I didn't even know if the lady at the airport would stamp my passport because I couldn't communicate to her where I was staying. I kept telling her I was a student, and I realized that wasn't what she was asking me. That's when I took inventory of my self-talk. I was telling myself how this discomfort was temporary and how everything was just going to continue to get better. That's when I defined for myself that my hope was derived from impermanence, the fact that things will keep moving forward. That being said, I also partnered this with improvising. I had prepared to get to Argentina, and now that preparation time was over. I only had what was around me and also what was already instilled within me. I started watching the culture and picked up on the fact that Argentines use a lot of hand gestures and voice inflections. They're very big when they're talking. I started doing that, and as I started communicating that way, I also noticed that that is what I was translating. If I didn't know a word, or really, if I didn't know anything they were talking about, I could still be a part of the conversation and understand the tone through their hand gestures and through their voice inflections. That brought me to my second space of doubt, navigating human relationships. Of course, you can't have a conversation without someone else there. This being said, I examined myself in different roles. My first role led me to confront people of power. While I was a CNA at the Waters, there was a time when we were very, very short-staffed, and this drew a lot of concerns from my coworkers. Because I was a night shift CNA, I had the chance to see everybody, so evening going home and the morning shift coming on. This being said, I got to talk with everyone about what was going on and realized that there was this roadblock between us on the floor and some of our administration. I took it upon myself to create a survey like the one you see behind me, consisting of 10 statements that I had built based on what I had heard from my other coworkers. And I presented it to our 3 HR representatives and my director of nursing. This is very intimidating as these people hold the future of my job, but I felt like it was very important to bridge that communication gap and to start moving forward. This being said, I learned that I was practicing collaborative leadership. Again, changing spectrums from going to speaking with people of power and superiority to now speaking to children who are seen as having less power and are almost inferior in that sense. But instead of holding power over them, as I would have had the opportunity to lecture and I could have changed a lot of what I was doing, I didn't. Instead, I went down to their level. I squatted down with them. I oohed and ahed and cheered them on as they played the game. This actually brought out more of their comments and questions. For example, one girl came up to me and she was so excited. She said, "Did you know mosquitoes drink your bleed so they can make eggs and have more mosquitoes?" And she was so excited. I said, "Wow, that is so interesting." I could have taken that moment to be like, "Wow, you're not really sure what you're talking about," but I didn't. Instead, I let her teach me what she knew, and that is how I continued to find conclusions in my study. So from going to power to less power to just being a stranger in a strange land. What do I do when I take myself completely out of my comfort zone and away from my support group? Going to Argentina, I realized I need a support group. That's what I thrive on and what helps me. And what I learned was that being open and being inclusive is what brings people together. So even though my host mom, who only spoke Spanish and didn't understand any English, we were able to have conversations through different recipes and through hugs. There was lots of hugs, which was very comforting for any of you who know me. Yes. And then there were the doctors. They were so inclusive. There was no hierarchy. Everyone was treated very equally. They passed around mate, which is their form of tea that's you drink through a straw. And there was always 2 cups of mate, and everyone passed them around. And it was passed to me and one of my new friends on the very first day. I don't even think we spoke that day, to be honest. And then, of course, all of my new friends that were in my cohort with me. We had so many heart-to-hearts, and it was so wonderful just to see how this journey was changing each of us in a very unique way. So thinking about change brings me to breaking the illusion of self. I have been a very external person. I consider myself an extrovert, and I focus very much on what's in front of me and around me. Through my capstone, I decided to take a moment and reflect deeply on myself and who I am and why I work the way I do. So one thing I took into consideration was the praise. I've received compliments and praise before, and I started to wonder what I do with them. Because of course, especially when they're very genuine and thought out, I take them into consideration. And I realized what I was doing was confirming with myself that yes, this is who I want to be. Yes, I'm in the right spot, or this is my goal, this is what I want to do. One statement in particular was while I was a CNA, they had a poster up for CNA Appreciation Week for the families to write on. And a family who had a mother who was passing away wrote that I was going above and beyond the call of duty, and I was very caring. And it just humbled me and made my heart swell, and I was so warm because I knew I was doing something good and that I had purpose where I was. And that's something that I always search for, is purpose. On the other side of that is the building statements. These statements either fueled me or deterred me from what I was doing. One specific example was while I was in Argentina. Even though I had had 5 years of Spanish, I still struggled very much with my speaking. And although my host mom was very patient, there were times where she would be frustrated. And at one point, she actually told me, I don't know Spanish, and I need to learn, and this is a fair frustration, of course. I was very disheartened, but realized immediately that my first thought was not to go home. My first thought was actually to take myself out of my bedroom and go and talk to her again and try and explain myself in Spanish with what was going on. I started downloading different podcast apps and looking up other things to read and practice because I wanted to get better. It was in that I discovered I want to learn Spanish not because someone's telling me I need to for my career or for my future. I was doing it because learning a second language is important to me, because language and communication is important to me. That being said, I do have a plan going forward, and I would like to be a registered nurse at first. But I also see myself in an administrative role and someone who's able to continue to educate others as I educate myself. That being said, I applied to the Masters of Nursing program at the UMTC, and I also applied for a job here in Rochester to be a healthcare services coordinator at the Waters. And we're still waiting to hear back on both of those. We're in limbo, but I am very excited just to know I have a plan. Something I would like other students to know, and I think is very important, is a lot of people and just society as a whole will always tell you what you should be doing and what you should learn, but try not to focus so hard on that and miss out on what you could be learning and the other opportunities that you could have, because it could lead you down a completely different path that you never knew about. I have many blessings. You all are one of them, of course, but I would like to give a special thank you to Yuko Taniguchi for all the talks and just sitting down with me and helping me sift through my thoughts and find meaning in each of them. Teresa, my mentor, for being there for me whenever I needed you. Dr. Petzold, for being my sub-advisor as well and my research coordinator. Brett Sheevy, for helping me coordinate everything together. Thank you so much. And then the coaching staff as a whole. I think I've spent time in all of their offices. And then, of course, my family for supporting me through everything. Special thank you to Mikey for helping me dance through all of the stress and personal problems and just everything and helping me relax. And one of my first and very best friends here, Dana. Because I don't know how, if you could have a time clock of the time that I've just spent talking to you and the hours, it would be endless. So thank you. Any questions? You go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. I believe I probably broke it this summer, I would say, when I started considering going to Argentina. Actually, Dr. Petzold challenged me a couple of times and said, why do you really want to be a nurse? What is it about you and what you've done that makes you want to do this? And I kept thinking I had a solid answer, but whenever I would step back with myself, I realized I don't know, because I picked it and I'm going for it. And that wasn't enough. And so I think before I went to Argentina, I kind of broke that, and I started looking for confirmation and building statements at that point to confirm either like, yes, this is one reason why nursing is for you, or to confirm the other way, like maybe it's not. Does that answer your question? Yes. So the illusion was that I really knew what I wanted to do, and it was an illusion of confidence too, really. And it was just starting to wonder, how confident am I, really? Mm-hmm. So. Oh. Thank you. Thanks. Thanks. Thank you. Any other questions? Yes. Yes. Mm-hmm. I would say that you don't have to define it. You don't have to define what you want to do. You don't have to define yourself just yet. I still think I am young, yes, and I still think I have plenty of time to figure it out. And I really felt that during my capstone. while you're writing your capstone proposal, you have this pressure that you need to know and you need to know now. And I don't think that's true. So take the time to find and define yourself. Mm-hmm. Teresa? Mm-hmm. I kind of knew I liked trying new things, and I knew I wasn't afraid of trying new things or meeting new people. And to be honest, one of the reasons why I embarked on this kind of capstone was what Yuko asked me. When I was getting ready for my capstone presentation, I said, Yuko, a lot of people are talking about vulnerability, but I feel like that's not an issue for me, that I'm okay with this. And she said, okay, well, why? And I really had no idea why. So this was kind of trying to figure that out. But yes, when I was younger, I was the go for it kind of kid. In the sports I was in, gymnastics and diving, you had to work through those roadblocks and you had to go for things in order to progress. And I think that continued to build as I went to college. Mm-hmm. Other questions? Thank you.